Hey guys, Robbie here from CFSB Nutrition at CrossFit South Bend. Today I want to talk to you about eating for health, longevity, and or performance. So Brandon recently did a fantastic video on training for all these different things and the trade-offs you make and focusing on one versus the other. Today I'm going to talk about the nutrition aspect of that. So the first thing to say is that for the vast majority of us, probably you watching and me included, you can get to, 75% pretty good longevity, living 80 to 100 years, and being pretty healthy and having a pretty good amount of performance in whatever it is you're trying to do recreationally, just by eating real whole food, getting to sleep on time, getting 8 hours from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., reducing stress, making sure you're getting adequate exercise, nature and sun exposure, proper hydration. Most people can get, a decent amount of each of these things, but not the most of any one thing, just by focusing those basic lifestyle guidelines that we've always talked about. However, if you're trying to maximize any one of these things, you are going to be getting trade-offs with other things. So let's start off by talking about longevity. If your goal is to live the longest life possible, the research literature in humans and mammals, mice, suggests that intermittent fasting and pretty strong caloric restriction on the order of lopping off at least 25% of your calories per day and perhaps more. Some people even suggest up to 50% of the calories you need per day. Keto, things like that. Basically, some form of caloric restriction is going to help you live the longest life possible. Now, here we're not talking about whether it's enjoyable. We're not talking about whether you're healthy. We're not talking about, maximizing performance. We're just talking about you want to live the most years. And if your main goal is that, then severe or, pretty strong caloric restriction is going to be the way to go. There's some overlap with health. Yes, by calorically restricting, you can help your blood sugar balance to a certain extent. It depends on what type of caloric restriction, but to a certain extent, get in line. Although you are going to be trading off on nutrients, both macro and micro. You are going to be trading off on optimal hormone levels. To a certain extent, you might be impacting digestion. So there's not a perfect overlap, and you are certainly not by any means optimizing performance. Longevity at the top level and performance at the top level are not compatible in any way, shape, or form when we are talking about nutrition. Now let's talk about health. Now, Brandon talked about health in his video, and he gave a good definition. When I'm talking about health, I'm specifically talking about physiological health. Mental health and, emotional health and all those things are really important and great, but here I'm just talking about physiological health, health of the body. So for that, you need adequate nutrients. You can't talk about anything in biochemistry, the Krebs cycle, the citric acid cycle, the urea cycle, all these different things run on the B vitamins, vitamin C, all the minerals, coenzyme Q10. You can't even talk about basic human biochemistry and physiology without those things. Blood sugar balance. You don't want blood sugar to be too high or too low. Proper digestion. Are you getting adequate gut bacteria? Are things moving at the right pace, not too slow or too fast? And adequate hormone levels, things like DHEA, cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. You want all of those things in line. How do you get there? Eating nutrient-dense real whole food 80 to 90% of the time and minimize processed foods. This is our foundational program that we teach in nutrition. If you just want to be healthy, this is the type of stuff that you have to do. You don't have to severely calorie restrict. You don't have to do macros and food timing and supplements. You just have to eat real whole food the vast majority of the time. There's some overlap here with longevity. To the extent you're eating healthy, you're going to live a longer life, but not the maximally most long-lived life, unless you're severely calorie restricting. And there's going to be some overlap with performance. This is the foundation for that, but it's not enough. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. It's not enough to get you optimal performance. So that's health. Now, performance. Now, we're not talking about being, we're not talking about getting an extra pull-up and workout or being, a decent competitor in your local CrossFit gym. Here we're talking about competing at the highest levels of powerlifting, Olympic lifting, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, Olympic sports in general, CrossFit. If that's your goal, then you are going to not only have to maximize the, different aspects of health, but you're going to need to calorie track. You're going to need to track your macros, protein, carbs, and fat. You're going to need to track when you're having your food, pre-workout nutrition, post-workout nutrition, maybe intra-workout nutrition if you're having long enough events, certain supplements, creatine, and other things to help you perform. There's some overlap between this and health. Again, this can help optimize your health to the extent you get your macros in line and proper food timing. Although I would argue it's not necessary for health, it could help optimize it, but it's not the same as health. And in fact, when you are going for a performance at that elite level, you are actively sacrificing some aspect of health, and you are certainly sacrificing some aspect of longevity. And that's why I put down here, there is no overlap between maximizing longevity, i.e. trying to live to 120, 130, and being at the top tier of your sport. Those two are fundamentally incompatible from a eating perspective. So, running 30 marathons a year might be something you like to do, but it's not maximizing your longevity. It's just not. Competing at the top levels of CrossFit, same thing. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but just recognize the trade-offs between those things. All right, guys, so hopefully now you've got a good sense of the difference between eating for health versus eating for longevity and eating for performance. Again, remember, for most of us, we're just looking for some of each of these things, in which case eating, real whole food, sleeping enough, getting exercise, de-stressing are what you need to get you a decent amount of each of these. But if you want to get the most of any one, you have to recognize the trade-offs and the unique things that are needed to get to each one. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.